Yesterday on May 4th, Valve put the brand new Steam controller up for sale at $99. Less than 30 minutes later, it was completely gone. If you were one of the thousands who sat there refreshing the page, hammering checkout, getting slammed with errors, or staring at that dreaded out-of-stock screen, your frustration is 100% valid. People are calling it a botched launch, a supply chain disaster, or another classic Valve moment. But here's the thing, they're sort of wrong. While everyone was raging at the checkout page, Valve was quietly unloading 50 tons of hardware labeled game consoles at their US distribution center in Carol Stream, Illinois. Yes, over 50 tons. Today, I'm walking you through the actual shipping manifest, the math behind the numbers, the leaked $600 Steam Machine price, and exactly why Valve deliberately starved the standalone controller market to fuel what looks like the most aggressive hardware push in their history. By the end, you'll know whether you should hunt for a scalper controller today or wait for the real play. So let's start with what actually happened on May 4th, because the anger online is real and it's easy to see why. The new Steam controller, redesigned with better haptics, magnetic thumbsticks, a 35+ hour battery, and that new puck charging dock, was supposed to be Valve's big living room play. In the weeks leading up to the launch, Valve's own designer Lawrence and engineer Steve were out telling the press they had built up a good amount of stock around the world.
It feels like this is a thing that's going to get sold out real quick. How do you feel about like the stock situation? How quickly are you going to be able to restock places going forward?
We have built up a good supply of this, but it's based on what we anticipate supply to be, and supply could be much larger than we anticipate, in which case like our production has a finite limit on how much we can make, and we'll do our best to keep up with demand if it greatly exceeds our expectations.
We do have knobs.
We have knobs we can turn to try to get things to people faster. It's complicated, and the mass production machine is a big machine with a lot of momentum. So depending on how it goes for the first chunk of time, if we have a lot high demand and it stays high demand, there's things we can do to help alleviate that down the road. But
we do think we'll have a good amount of stock around the world for the launch.
Yeah.
And then the way it works, like you have what's already in the warehouse, and we have whatever's already shipping on the way to the warehouse. Like all of that stuff is currently moving already.
Yeah.
And then at the factory, if we're like, oh, we actually probably need to make more, then we can turn that knob up and like have them producing more. But then there's a lag. So we did our best to guess. Forecasting is one of those, alchemy. Like who knows?
Yeah.
You do your best, and then you're like never exactly right. But we try to build enough wiggle room so that we can try not to be out of stock for a really long time.
Yeah.
Yet here we are, sold out in half an hour with store errors everywhere and regional stock differences. It felt a bit broken to the average person wanting to get a controller, but Valve themselves just addressed it directly on X. Steam controller ran out faster than we anticipated, and we hate that not everyone who wanted one was able to get it. We're working on getting more in stock, and we'll have an update on expected timeline soon. Valve openly admits they underestimated demand. This kind of honest, direct communication is rare, and it shows that they're listening to the community. But the real hardware that matters for Valve's long-term plan was already sitting in the US, cleared through customs, and it weighs over 53,000 kilograms. Hardware tracker Brad Lynch reported right around the controller drop between April 30th and May 1st alone, Valve ramped up their shipments of game consoles. Since April 23rd, it added up to over 53,000 kilograms of cargo classified as game consoles into their Ingram Micro warehouse in Carol Stream, Illinois. That's on top of another 127,000 kilograms of shipments over the past 2 months. Now the math, because these numbers seem a bit useless without the context. Valve themselves have confirmed the Steam Machine weighs 2.6 kilograms. Add packaging, power cables, and anything else, and you're looking at roughly 3 kilograms per complete shipped unit. So 53,000 kilograms divided by 3 kilograms per unit is roughly 17,000 to 20,000 complete Steam machines already sitting in the United States right now. Crucially, Valve has confirmed Steam machine bundles that include the new controller. Those bundles are almost certainly consuming a huge portion of the available controllers Valve has. If we assume even half of those 20,000 Steam machine units are bundles, that's at least 10,000 controllers controllers already prepared and reserved for the Steam machine. The standalone controllers fought for yesterday were basically the stock Valve wasn't using for their Steam machines and were planning to release separately. So Valve would be needing to set aside some of those controllers for these bundles, which are already in their distribution network. Brad Lynch himself has noted the quantities and timings make Steam Machine or a Steam Frame the safest assumption for what these shipments actually are. And before you ask, could it be something else? Sure, it could theoretically be deck restocks mixed in, but the timing right around the controller drop and the fact that Valve has been radio silent on the Steam Machine launch date tells the real story. So to really understand what is happening, it helps to look at Valve's proven playbook from past hardware launches. When you look at the original Steam Deck rollout, Valve started with extremely limited supply where they faced massive demand and chaos, but then they methodically built up warehouse buffers before opening wider sales. We're seeing nearly the exact same logistics pattern here, and to be honest, the Steam controller launch doesn't seem to be as bad as the original Steam Deck, which was a bit of a disaster. They underestimated day one controller hype, as their own statement admits, but it seems like they are stocking up on some massive console inventory. So could we see the Steam machine last longer than just 30 minutes before it sells out? The question now is, when will they actually release it? Could we see it in a few weeks, or will it be coming out this summer? And this all circles back to the recent Steam machine pricing and the brutal RAM shortage that Valve has been speaking about. Let's begin with the interesting contrast on price. For months, most estimates were sitting way higher. Linus and many others were projecting $700 and up for the Steam machine. Some retailer leaks and speculations even pushed towards $1,000 or more. Brad Lynch himself has been saying recently that the price has gone up quite a bit because of component costs. So many were expecting the Steam machine to have a pretty high price tag. But then Moore's Law is dead drops the latest bill of materials tracking and puts the realistic base 512GB model in the $600 to $650 range. That's actually a lot cheaper than many people were expecting. It's aggressive as hell compared to those $700 to $1,000 estimates. If Valve actually launches at $600 to $650 for the base Steam machine, it would be massive. At that price, they're almost certainly taking a loss. Estimates could be at least a few $100s per unit on the hardware itself, which this could just be a classic loss leader strategy. They eat the margin to lock in users into the Steam ecosystem and earn long-term on games and services. Every standalone controller sold reduces the pool available for those Steam machine bundles. Now, do I think the $600 to $650 pricing could actually be legit? I mean, it is possible, but we will have to see. It's a lot lower than what most analysts and people were expecting, or it could be real and Valve is once again playing the long game with aggressive pricing to grow the platform, just like they did with the original Steam Deck. So what should you do now if you haven't picked up a Steam controller yet? If you're staring at the $200 plus controllers on eBay, don't pull the trigger. Valve's own statement says they're working on more stock, so hopefully we hear more news, whether that's from Valve officially or more imports for controllers coming in. Today, they have also released the Steam controller and Puck CAD files if you want to hack, mod, or design your own accessories. Yesterday's failed drop wasn't actually a failure, it just shows how Valve truly underestimated how much people wanted this new Steam hardware. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Are you waiting for the full Steam machine bundle, or did you manage to get a Steam controller yesterday?